What up and welcome to Keeping It Local with Pam and Justin, the podcast where community meets innovation.
Yeah, join us as we dive into stories of local entrepreneurs, celebrate the unsung heroes, connect with inspiring leadership shaping our community.
Let's keep it local.
Loco.
Keep it loco.
We're here today with Justin, and many of you don't know, but he actually is the founder of Operation Go.
Yep.
And also, just to kind of give you a little side note, we're both from Rochester, New York, which is kind of crazy in Charlotte that it seems like no matter where you go, you always run into someone from Rochester. But this project actually has started in Rochester, right?
Absolutely. So I've been doing Operation Go for about, I want to say 11 years now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it started back in around 2012. I started a TV show called Generation News with a friend of mine. We were, just highlighting all the positive things young people are doing in the community. And then we went from just, highlighting things to, all right, how do we show young people how to do these things?
Wow.
We can highlight entrepreneurs, people who own their own business, but how do we show kids how to get into that?
So it's not even just talking about it, you're actually going to give them the skills.
The hands-on.
Hands-on.
Well, that's because with me, I'm all hands-on. That's just how I learn. It's very hard for me to sit in front of a teacher and just listen. I have to be hands-on with everything.
Well, actually that you brought that up, when I went to Hilton Schools, one of the principals, Mr. Cook, actually said to me, because it's really unfortunate that a lot of kids learn, there's 7 different ways to learn, but we only in our education system only really teach a couple. So to your point, hands-on, a lot of people really want to touch and feel things to understand the mechanics, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I went to college for physical education, and I just randomly selected it. I went to School of the Arts, and I ended up doing video production after college.
Oh, wow.
And so my thinking, when I look back, I'm like, man, I wish I would have known about video production while I was in high school, because then I probably would have went to a good college for film. And so once I realized that, there's a lot of kids that are going through the same exact thing that I went through, I was like, man, I need to just start teaching kids about video production.
Yeah.
And from there,
Is that the first one?
Yeah, that's the first program I taught was video production, and that kind of grew into game design, sneaker, clothing, plumbing, like all these different careers.
I've seen the shoes. I don't know if you guys have seen the shoes, but the shoe was pretty amazing how they got that into production. Someone's actual dream, like on paper, actually turns into something. I mean, I don't know how many opportunities that kids get like that to actually take their own thoughts in their head and actually create something that you can actually touch.
Well, it's a very unique program because there's not programs out there that are teaching kids how to design, teaching them the anatomy of a sneaker, and then also getting it manufactured from a company overseas where they can put their sneakers on their feet, right? And that's
entrepreneurship. I mean,
absolutely.
A lot of us, we get into that entrepreneurship because of a situation. You want to be your own boss and you think it's going to be great, but to actually learn the skills to kind of take your idea to finished product is pretty awesome. So in Rochester, when you started this, how did who got involved and how did it expand there?
So I'll tell you a story, because I had just started my entrepreneurial journey, and when I wanted to launch this, I met with, it was a program that was connected to RIT, and they were like, oh, can you come and work with some kids on video, teaching them some video stuff. And I'm like, all right. So I'm thinking I'm going to meet with a small group of kids, and I'm bringing my one camera. Mind you, I also only had been doing video for 2 years at that point, so I'm not an expert at video. I was just good at it. And so I come in with my camera, ready to talk to a few kids. I come into this is at RIT, and these are high school kids, middle school kids. I go into the room. It's a big room, and there's 40 kids.
Oh, wow.
There's 40 kids, and I'm like...
40 to 1. Good luck with that.
40 to 1, right? And so I have one camera.
I bet you those teachers all wanted a nice extra lunch, so you got them all.
Exactly. So I was terrified because now I can't just sit down with them. I have to be almost like a teacher and just be in front of the class.
That's not what you wanted to do. You really wanted to give them a skill.
Right. And so, but that was my, just being launched out into the deep end. And now you have to, I was also afraid of public speaking. And so now I have to public speak in front of kids for an hour when I didn't plan on that. And so now I'm coming off the cuffs. I'm actually walking the camera around the classroom, showing them the different buttons, showing them how to operate it. telling them all the possibilities that are in film as much as I knew.
Right.
And that's how I got introduced. And that was free. Like, that was a free thing. But from that point on, that's where I got my exposure.
What kind of need did you feel like your project was really resolving?
So basically, like, in almost every inner city school, you got high dropout rates, very low graduation rates, very low, test taking skills, and then you have a lot of kids that I want to be an NBA player, I want to be a rapper, I want to be just a few things they have in their mind, and it's only because what's put in front of them, and you really don't. We really want to make other careers attractive to them so that they can like try it out and say, all right, I do want to go this route. I do want to go this route. The education system isn't preparing kids for that. It's basically preparing them to be an employee. Sit in a row, listen to your boss, come in at 8:30 in the morning, leave at this time. It's just that's how it was designed.
Well, and don't you feel like with the school system itself, like they're like, okay, well, they're going to go to college and get their careers defined there, this and that. And it sounds like in your situation that you're almost jump starting that to where you're starting to give kids opportunities that they might not like going to school, but if they're able to do some video production or, they know after school that they're going to be able to create something, they get more excited about things. And I feel like with what you're doing and some of the things I've already seen that you've done, that kids who have to touch things or have ADD problems or have struggled with sitting down, things like that, even computer skills. I mean, a lot of times they all have their iPads, but do they really have computer skills, right?
Right.
So I feel like with what you're doing, it kind of creates kind of a niche for the kid that really wants to be successful, wants to make their parents proud, but at the same time, the traditional school system's not really making it happen.
The kids don't know what they're passionate about.
Yeah.
Like you said, they don't know what their passion is, and nobody's ever putting some things in front of them that's going to help them to determine what their passion is. And so that's why what we're doing is so important, and it needs to be scaled so that more and more kids are trying these things out. We can save kids a lot of money. Number one, the program is free to the students in most cases, and then you think about it like this. I went to college and I changed my major 3 or 4 times. I don't know what the average is. I think the average is 4 or 5 times where people are changing their major.
Really?
I could be wrong, but it's a high number. I mean,
and college is not expensive. I mean, it's just so expensive.
Exactly. 2 is a high number. So if you're anywhere above 2, that's crazy. And so if we can get kids to say, I like or I love video game design before they get into college, I'm going to college for this. They finish out college in video game design because they didn't take that time to figure out what they were interested in.
Right. And to be honest, my foster son had a really great idea and he thought he had everything figured out, but he went to community college for a year and a half and it didn't appeal to him. And he does struggle with ADD, so he's super smart, but he struggles to sit there in front of somebody.
Yeah.
And so I hear what you're saying here. So now that we're in Charlotte, which many of you may not know, the project is going to actually be housed here, right? So you're going to be recreating that same thing here. What is it that people can do to help kind of get this project going?
Well, I'll start by saying like the ultimate vision of what we're doing. So the ultimate vision, and you guys can click the link at the end of this video. You can click on the link and you'll be able to see the vision. But what we're doing is we're creating a facility where think of Google headquarters. Think of an innovative workspace for kids. If kids are designing sneakers, if they're creating their sneakers or doing video production, their sneaker creation program is in what looks like a Foot Locker. They're doing video production, they're going to be doing their class in a film studio. And it goes like that for every program. And so we want kids to be fired up after school, wanting to come to the program and get to learn something, right? And so they'll spend weeks doing video production. Then they'll switch over to maybe app development. Then they'll switch over to construction. And they're going to try all these different courses. By the time they're done with our program, and we also want them to be in our program for multiple years. Within those multiple years, they may have tried 10 to 15 different programs.
Wow.
But by the end of it, they'll say, "Man, I want to be a pilot." and now we put them on a track to becoming an official licensed pilot, right? Or put them on track to go to college for film production.
Yeah.
You know, so that's the vision in a nutshell, but it's very creative, very innovative, something outside the lines of school. And you mentioned the ADD part. A lot of kids are diagnosed with ADHD, and I'm one of those kids that was diagnosed with ADHD. And it's not necessarily that it's not a problem with the person. It's a problem with the environment, right? And so my environment should be, I'm out and about in the forest learning. I'm out and about doing, and a lot of kids that's just how they are. We have to be moving.
Right.
I think that's how everybody's designed. And so the classroom doesn't fit them.
We struggled. I mean, when he was in foster care, and we had by the way, we went to one of the very best schools, and they tried. I mean, they worked so hard, but he was falling asleep by 10 or 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
You know, so I also did notice that the cafeteria was giving him a little extra, cinnamon roll that they shouldn't be giving him. But he was just, he was just struggling because he wanted to be doing stuff with his hands. And when he came home after school, man, we would do so many different things with him that he wasn't falling asleep at that point. So we fixed an iPad. We took an iPad. He accidentally broke it. And I said, well, you got to fix it. So we YouTubed it and we tried to fix it. We failed, but we still tried. Yeah. But to your vision, I mean, I kind of feel like for the kids out there that are struggling with graduation rates and the schools in our area, that if this is really, truly the numbers of what we're seeing, Project Go could really step in here and help these kids have an idea, even if they're graduating. Let's just say that some of them, even in the low ranking of graduation, they're graduating, they don't even know what their next step is, but be able to hit even 5 to 6 different potential careers out there with physically touching them seems like a huge success for parents because, you're not in that situation. So what are you going to do in Charlotte? So are you going to do pop-up events? Where are we going? I want to help. I'm sure you want to help. What do we want to do?
I mean, the first thing is we have to raise the money to make this facility a reality. So we will have pop-up events. We'll have fundraising dinners, fundraising events that we want everybody to come out to and support. I even have an idea that, I want to this is not one of the best ways to fundraise, but I have an idea to just go out with a big sign, has a QR code on it, and go on the street and say, help me save the youth. Yeah. Help me save the youth. I give $1 to the person that's at the corner right there. Yeah. But I wouldn't want to take the cash, but I just want people at a huge intersection to be able to see what we're doing. That's just one of the ways I'm gonna get the word out. Yeah. Continue networking with people. Who doesn't want to save the youth? Who doesn't want to see the youth flourish? I mean, it's impacting everybody. If a kid goes from school, they don't know what they want to do in college. They don't know what they want to do for their future. They have to make money somehow. So they're going to turn to crime. They're going to turn to stealing from people. They're going to turn to drugs. They're going to turn to so many different things. And guess what? That affects everybody. Right. Because they may be stealing your car. They may be robbing you. They may be stealing from you. And so if we can get people all on the same page to say, hey, we need to invest in these young people, then we'll be able to make it happen. Because most of the time, we can't rely on the city. Yeah. We can't rely on the government to say, let's fix these students. Because you got to understand, the government makes money off of these kids as well. You know what I mean? These prisons are making tons and tons of money. And one thing that we had in our big interview is that if a kid is not reading by the 3rd grade, they're already planning how many beds they need 9 years later when the kid gets out of school.
That number was astonishing. Yeah.
So they know they're calculating how much money they're gonna make. With the prisons being privatized as well, there's incentive for kids to do bad. There's incentives for these kids to grow up and be delinquent, and then they're delinquent, but then they have kids, and so now you have somebody who's
there's always that chain of poverty, chain of systemic problems, and that's a huge thing. It's funny because when someone's successful, they don't necessarily pass the chain of success, believe it or not. But it does seem like when you get into that situation that all you see is the poverty and the systemic issues, that it does seem to get passed along in our heritage, and I'm not sure why that is, but it just seems like the negative stays around, but when the positive's there, you got a 50-50 chance at least. And having positive role models in this program seems like a really great opportunity for the kids. So technically free for the kids. We're looking for sponsorship from different businesses. I'm going to try to convince Justin to do some pop-ups so where we can bring the kids in and stuff so that we have the ability to show you right here on camera what it looks like for these kids. I heard that you're going to do a meteorologist thing too. Remember how we talked with the weather person? We talked about this. Remember how video production, we talked about people being able to like be the meteorologist in one of the classes and teach them how to kind of be in front of it. You remember that?
Absolutely. And have a green screen where they can actually be the meteorologist and understand how they. And we've taken kids to news stations so they can see behind the scenes of how the news station works, behind the scenes of how a meteorologist works. And you see their eyes light up like, wow, this is so cool. I see this on TV. And that's how you know something is sparking inside of them because of introduction. Most of the time when you have wealthy families, right, and you're talking about passing things along, it's like those wealthy families are also able to introduce you to a specific career.
Right.
I do stocks. I do this.
Right.
This is just what I grew up knowing.
Right.
And myself growing up, a lot of kids growing up, they're growing up knowing poverty, right? So to them, and I become an adult, those habits, those thoughts, they're the same.
And their parents were always like, yep, we don't have the money for this. We don't have the money for this. We don't have the money for this.
Yeah.
So they stop asking.
Right. Exactly. So it's an uphill battle, but every city needs it. Every city needs what we're doing. And so I want to say by the end of 2024 that we're up and running as far as having the facility. And it'd be a destination. I want people to come to Charlotte, North Carolina and say, we got to go check out Operation Go. We got to go check out the Operation Go facility. And then at that point, we start taking it city to city. So it's definitely an ambitious idea.
I'm excited about it. I am. I've been, we've been talking for 2 years about this. I think this is what youth in our area needs. It's funny that, we were talking about this and I know that we got to kind of wrap this up, but it's even interesting that even in our HOAs that a lot of times when it comes down to all the different activities that are put together, we talk about our teens. They always are, the teens shouldn't be doing this, shouldn't be doing that. Well, what events are we doing for teens, So I think it's kind of one of those pieces where a lot of people just don't know what to do. And now you're giving people an opportunity to say, this is what we should be doing. And now all you have to do is invest either some time and some money to help create a opportunity for a teenager to be able to be our future. Because, regardless of what position you are or what age you are, our youth is our future. And if we don't invest in them, our future is going to be pretty dim.
Absolutely. We're handing it over to them, and they have to be prepared. And a lot of kids want to be, they want to be a YouTuber, which is great. A lot of them can be.
Influencers.
But who's going to build the cities? Who's going to build the bridges? Who's doing all this hard labor,
Or to your point, the trades, like who's doing the trades?
Doing it?
Who's got the skills? Who's got the skill set for those things? So Justin, with you putting on this project and the people that you have in place, why is it important to have those people as mentors?
So a lot of times we're dealing with inner city students. We're dealing with the minority population at a higher level because the dropout rate is so much higher in that demographic. And so a lot of our instructors or our mentors, they also look like them. A lot of times they don't get to, the only time they see a mentor, or I don't want to say mentor, the only time they see somebody that they look up to is when they're a rapper or when they're an athlete, right? Celebrity status. And so that's when the kids, they desire to be that. But then if they see somebody like myself who's a professional entrepreneur in video production, I can present them a camera in a different way. The same way they look at a basketball or a celebrity, they see somebody that looks like them that is offering another opportunity, another option,
And it's obtainable.
and it's obtainable. And they don't realize that you can make $100,000 being a plumber. They don't realize that you can make six figures, you know, in construction or carpentry. They
In
just
real estate, here we are, right?
they don't realize that you can do that in real estate. They don't even, these things don't even cross their mind. And so if we can prove to them that somebody that came from where they came from is doing these different types of things, it's more attainable. They can reach out and grab it. And so, you know, they have so many people like putting bugs in their ear or telling them you can do this, or, you know, come, you know, sell drugs or sell, you know, there's so many different things that they're being
Right.
told.
So in their current environment too, there's a lot of negativity, or that they have the issues because they're seeing it. I mean,
Yeah.
so when they go home and they're going to their communities and they see these things happening that aren't going to provide them necessarily with a great future,
Yeah.
and that's what they're seeing every day, and you're
Yeah.
giving them an opportunity to see something that says, hey, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I don't need to be an NBA. I mean, because to be honest, like, if they're not athletic, right, and you're talking about this stuff and they're not musically ingrained, right, you know, what other opportunities do they have?
In their mind, what
In
other
their-
opportunities do they
exactly.
have? They're like, I can't do anything,
Right.
but I need to make money now.
Right.
You know, and so that's the dilemma. And then the other thing is like the power of words, right? You have your father and your mother who speak life into you as you're growing up. Maybe some of them don't have that, right? Or you have their favorite rapper who's rapping about killing somebody, selling drugs, doing drugs. And so if those words are penetrating their minds and their spirits like on a constant basis,
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer that's what you become, because you're
Right.
meditating on it, you're speaking it, it's in
Yeah.
your heart now, and you become that. And so, you know, when you have somebody that, like myself or other people, who can mentor them and like speak life into them and point them in the right direction, you can really transform that child's life,
Yeah.
you know, by showing them those things.
Well, you know, some of the things that you're saying really speak to me too, because when life happens, you know, I did not come from a home that was in any means, actually in my area probably have been considered poor, to be honest. And nobody knew that. I mean, your finances, you know, you just, as a kid, you're quiet about things, you know, but with that being said, their parents are working long hours. Like, some people are like, oh, well, if their parents were more involved, or their parents were here, or this and that. But, you know, these parents sometimes, especially with, I mean, the rent in Charlotte, I mean, let's not even go to how much it costs to live in, you know, to live in some of these houses. But some of their parents are working two jobs, three jobs. So, you know, these kids don't get the opportunities that other kids would, because their parents aren't involved and around. And, you know, and those parents could be trying to fight the exact same thing that they came from, where they came from a family that they didn't have the opportunities available to them. So they're working the jobs that they can, you know, that they can do, right?
Absolutely.
So they don't have the talent or the trades. And, you know, and then there becomes a self-confidence issue, right? So, you know, when you feel like you don't know enough, or that you're not good enough, or you don't deserve enough, your self-confidence gets hit. So I just kind of feel like, just hearing you talk about this stuff, having a mentor, having a safe place to go, having an opportunity given to you that otherwise you wouldn't have. I mean, it just feels like a huge change in a circle, like a break of a cycle of just poverty.
Yeah, you're breaking the curse of poverty and a certain mindset. You're right. The parents lived what the kids are living now. They became adults, and now they're still living from that same perspective. So it's really hard to pull that child out. And so it's up to a generation of a family to say, you know, this really stops here. From this point on, we can make this change. I think with the presence of the social media, the internet, it allows people to see more and get access to more information, so that they can start shifting their mindset a little bit. And so, you know, I think this generation, we're starting to see that change, where they're like, no, we don't want to do it the way you guys did it. We don't want to work a corporate job the way you guys did and depend on one company for the rest of our lives. We want to do innovative things. We want to make good money, and we want to do innovative things. And
and I feel like their confidence are built, you know. But again, going back to when we were kids, you know, I'm thankful, even though we were poor, that we at least lived in a good neighborhood, to where I didn't see, to your point, the drugs and stuff. I mean, if there was an alternative way to make money and you need money and you're poor and it's right in your face, like, hey, you know, if you just do this one thing or you steal this one thing, you know, you get an extra $20 in your pocket that might help the family out. That's a huge deterrent in life, because one bad situation that happens and you get arrested for it, you know,
Now it's on your,
now it's on your record.
You know, I used to be, and a lot of people judge these kids, right? There's a lot of, you know, they deserve it. They need to lock them up. You know, I've heard it so many times. You know, that they deserve it, and I think everybody's guilty of it at some point. And I was judgmental at some point as well. And then you realize the situation that these kids are in.
Just for the record, that has never been me. I always liked the kids that got in trouble. I felt like their brains were going and we just weren't doing enough for them. But
and then you find out like the type of trauma that these kids have been through, the type of environment that they're in, and it's no wonder why they turn to drugs. They're in traumatic. They've been through traumatic experiences. You have kids that watched friends die in front of them or be murdered in front of them. And it's like you want this kid to just grow up and be normal, especially in the I don't know how it is in other communities, but in the minority community, counseling or
not available.
It's either not available or it's taboo. It's like something that you don't
the minute you get counseling, then you're kind of labeled like
there's a problem with you.
You get the label, and so.
But what about some of these kids growing up where literally they hear gunshots all night? I can be honest, like coming out of college, there were certain areas that I moved to for jobs, and I thought I heard sounds. Never in a million years did I think it was gunshots.
Right.
And they're like, get back to your house, or this not like there's gunshots, and I'm like, what do you mean? Like, so to your point, like when you're talking about just trauma, like for them, like it's just like having a house with a train track, right? Like train tracks going behind you, and now you like to sleep to it. Now you're like, okay, this is.
I seen I think it was a story. It might have been Rochester too. There was a lady who was being interviewed by the news, right? All right. So it was a black lady, and the reporter was a white older guy, right? And so gunshots. There was a drive-by, and then they get down. The guy gets on the ground. He's terrified. She's scared too. Yeah. But she's like, relax, calm down. It's just a drive-by.
It's just a drive-by.
She's walking him through this, and it's like, it's so normal.
Yeah.
It's so normal. It's in the hood. It's just a normal occurrence, and so it's like, all right, but what if you're 10 years old having
I mean,
the amount of anxiety.
Just as a kindergarten, like you see these cute little kindergartners getting on the school bus. That same kindergarten could have, for the last 5 years heard that as like it's normal. And then what's crazy is that let's just say that they, the family moves away from it, and then all of a sudden it's not there anymore. Like you start to think like there's something wrong with you because, you kind of feel like, well, that was normal.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. My son, so during like 4th of July time, you hear the fireworks. And so my 10-year-old, he hears the fireworks, and he's like, got scared. He thought it was gunshots. Yeah. Mind you, he's never been in an environment where he's heard gunshots. Right. And so I had to let him know what it was. But I just thought to myself, like, well, what if he was in an environment where he had to hear gunshots? Right. What does that do if just these fireworks are having impact? Right? Yeah, this is having an impact on my son, and he's never heard gunshots. Yeah. What does it do to kids who are in those environments? Yeah. And so we have to be cognizant of those kids and how to deal with them and how to mentor them and walk them through with compassion, empathy, and love, and really point them in the right direction.
You're right. We really do need to be paying attention to this because, the schools right now, too, in the area, a lot of them are overpopulated because, it's expensive to build new schools. Yeah. And I've noticed that a lot of the kids are going virtually. Yeah. And I know they're trying to kind of hybrid it to where there's certain classes is not, but social skills. I mean, if they're literally virtual, even, 20 hours out of the 30 hours they go to school, I mean, the social skills already with texting and all this other stuff is really not there. I'm going to say non-existent. Your parents are really teaching you that. But then again, if their parents are just like, oh, yeah, they're in school, they're doing this, your program really gives them the opportunity not only to put their hands on things, but they actually got to communicate with other people to be able to create their products, to be able to do these things because you can't do it alone.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's one of the biggest problems that we're having currently is these kids, when they're creating their careers and stuff, they think they do it alone, but
Yeah.
you actually got to communicate. You can't just sit there and
Yeah.
listen to somebody.
Absolutely. So that's a great point. With our program at the facility, there's a bunch of things that we want to tackle because we want to create a well-rounded student. You start with, all right, what's our academic focus?
Yeah.
Figure out what the kids are learning, what they're struggling in, and making sure their homework is getting done. Because we want the kids to be, if they have bad grades when they come into our program, by the time they're done, or the time the next semester comes up, we want to see improvement in their grades, and that's through us directly tutoring them. The next piece is you have your career ladder. That's all the careers we discussed. Then you have reprogram, which teaches them generational wealth. This is stocks, financial, budgeting, all that good stuff. Credit. That's
Credit's
under
a big
reprogram. Then we have a program where it's my brand, right? People don't understand that they're a business. They are a personal brand. And so we teach them public speaking. We teach them how to look somebody in the eye, how to shake somebody's hand, how to carry yourself, how to utilize your network, and understand what resources you have around you. Because like you said, if they're going just on their laptop, they're not going to have those skills to be in front of somebody and present themselves as a well put together brand. And so we're working intensely on that because that's going to allow them even more opportunities in every other aspect of the program.
Yeah.
So whether you're a plumber, carpenter, videographer, entrepreneur, you need to have that part where your brand goes before you, right? It speaks before you even get in the room. People are like, all right, I know that kid. I heard of him. He does this. He's very respectful, and people want to have those conversations with you.
Does this create a situation where people volunteer their time for these classes, or are there people that are specialized in these pieces to be part of Operation Go?
So a lot of the instructors, if that's what you're talking about, the instructors they'll be paid instructors.
Okay.
Because you're dealing with entrepreneurs, you're dealing with professionals. You want to make sure that you compensate them for their time. We do want to eventually bring in people who want to volunteer, not for long periods of time. Maybe they want to come in and speak to the students or share something with
Maybe
the
in
students.
some mentorship,
Tutoring,
opportunities. Yeah.
And so, we will have a need for people to come in and speak and do some of that mentorship. So yeah, it's exciting.
It is exciting. I think for me, by the way, this is just unfortunately Justin's thorn in his side that I'm that person. Like when you talk about things, like let's do it. Like let's get going. And so, I guess my first question to you would be, what's our next step? I know obviously at this point, if you can donate, right?
Yeah.
But what's our next steps? I know you talked about maybe doing a happy hour. So
yes. So we have a few events coming up. You'll be able to go to the website and see all the events that we have coming up. Some of them are happy hours. Some of them are dinners. Some of them are just pop-ups, and people will be able to come in and
I think we should talk a little bit more about the pop-up.
Absolutely.
So the pop-up idea that we talked about last year, what we're noticing too, and when we're talking on this podcast, and you're talking about, there is certain kids that really need this program, and it really needs to be, done quickly. But this program is not isolated to one. I'm going to say one group of, or it's definitely very diverse. So if you feel like you've got students or stuff that you'd want to be a part of this, they come. So we just want to be clear, like even though that we're trying to, I shouldn't say we. By the way, I am on you did put me on the board, right? So I do sit on the board, but I'm not the one doing the work. But with that being said, I do think that with the pop-ups that we noticed in our discussion, if someone wants to be a realtor, that I might be able to put a class together. We talked about putting a cooking class together. But then we also talked about credit. A lot of kids don't seem to know about credit and what credit is. So you kind of talked about some of the pop-ups doing those things. So you want to kind of hit on them?
Yeah, so basically we want to be able to get parents and students together in one room. And one pop-up may just be dedicated to credit, like you said, and we have a professional come in and do a recap of the possibilities with credit or the different strategies. They might give some nuggets on how to improve your credit. And they'll be talking directly to the students as well, in a way that the students can understand. And so it just gives you a sample, a feeling of what the kids are going to be receiving when they're in the program. Or if it's culinary arts, they're actually going to show you guys how to cook some things. You'll be able to put your hands on the food, on the dishes, and make something for a short period of time. It's really all about sampling these careers and giving kids and parents the opportunity to see what's going on. So that's got to be almost an every week thing or every other week thing.
I think it would be, I mean, I think it'd be a lot of fun, because if these parents here know that their kids might be interested in certain things, and we do kind of a pop-up on something, you know, that they can kind of experience to see what their kid thinks. You know, someone might be, and this is a true fact here, is that if your kid is all of a sudden like, I love cooking, but you don't ever let them cook at home, and then all of a sudden they come to this class, and they're not following the instructions, they're not excited, their eyes aren't nice and big, it's probably not something they should be looking into, at least at this point. Maybe it's a maturity thing at the time, but you know, you might want to go in a different direction, you know?
Absolutely.
So I find that, you know, I'm very excited about the pop-ups office. I can hear it in my voice. It's like Christmas Day when he says the word pop-ups. But I think it's very exciting because it helps all kids at this point, because when the actual building is up and this and that, I can't wait to see that Google look to it, to where the kids want to be there, and excited to be there, and you know, and man, I can't even imagine taking what I thought would look, you know, in my head what would look like, putting it in front of me, just you know, and just feeling like I created something. You know, so at the age of, you know, I don't know, 12 to 16, you know, that they're doing these things and kind of getting them excited about things. And I feel like that's what we've lost in our schools, is that the kids don't get excited. Unless you're in sports or some, you know, and you're singing or something like that, there's not really a lot to get excited about in school, right? Like.
Yeah, and the other thing is kids want to make money too. So they want to get paid, and so we want to put them in a position where they can make some money with the entire program. One of my favorites is going to be the flight simulator, where kids can learn how to become pilots. With a professional flight simulator, and then, you know, if they love it, then we connect them with a real pilot or a training course where they can get certified. So it's just things like that, like how do we streamline your process based on your passion? Ooh, that was good. How do we streamline your process based on your passion? I gotta use that.
So when you're editing this, notice that you gotta use that line for your
that's gotta go somewhere. That's gotta go somewhere.
So you guys have learned a little bit more about Operation Go, to where, you know, this is worth your time to follow us, to hear more about it, and to get involved, because sometimes the activity that needs to be done, we're okay with taking your money if that's what you want to hand out, right?
Absolutely.
So if there's sponsorships out there that you guys need to put some money towards, you know, Operation Go will definitely make sure that those proceeds go directly to the students there. I also think too is if you want to, you know, forward the broadcast to other people to get them involved, we would thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you want to take it away?
Like you said, make sure you guys, you know, support us, whether it's by donation or volunteering or just spreading the word, sharing these videos, and getting them in front of the right people. Click the link below after the video and check out the vision. See the vision for yourself. And it may spark some things up in you to who can you put this in front of. But the children, the youth, this generation is not going to change unless we all have hands on deck and are working to really change their trajectory, really.
Yeah.
And so let's do this together.
Well, Justin, I know as my co-host here, I'm excited about what we're doing going forward, but thank you for bringing us into their community information about Project Go. And why did I say that Project Go? It's Operation Go. Sorry, guys. Go. I don't know why I keep doing that. I don't know what Project
Operation Go, guys.
Yeah, Operation Go. So, but, you know, I would love to us keep updating our website and stuff with information about what you are doing, so that people can start and keep investing in the program.